welcome back to KXAN Plus. I'm your host, Esmeralda Zamora. If you're watching us live, happy Wednesday morning. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can always rewatch episodes just like this KXAN Plus original on our KXAN Plus streaming app for free, available on any streaming app store that you use. Today we have our Kristen's Classroom segment with our KXAN meteorologist Kristen Currie. Kristen, thanks for joining me. How you doing?
Pretty good. It's been a busy morning getting everything ready to go, but I'm excited to be here today talking about tornadoes.
Yeah, we've talked about tornadoes in the past, but
Yeah.
this version of the show that we're going to talk about sounds so much more interesting. And I didn't even know that you couldn't tell what a tornado is until after the tornado.
That's exactly where I wanted to talk about it. I think this is going to be hopefully a very informative episode of Kristen's Classroom, because I think there is a natural curiosity with tornadoes, right? One of the most destructive weather phenomena on Earth. But I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about tornadoes too. And a lot of people are thinking, wait, it's October, it's still tornado season. Yes, we could have tornadoes any time of the year, but there's a certain reason why we're talking about it today.
So we're not talking about it because we saw a tornado, but we're actually talking about it because we saw one a few months ago.
Yes, ma'am. I know. Weird, right? But it's because if you were with us earlier in the week, we actually got some new findings of a tornado in North Dakota in June.
Wow.
Those new findings now tell us that tornado was an EF5, and it's been a long time since we've seen an EF5. You ready to get started?
What is the levels of the tornadoes? Is EF5 the highest?
It sure is. Yeah. Unfortunately, the most destructive. So if I just kind of paint a picture here of what this tornado, was all about, it is now that EF5 rating. Initially, when they went out there and assessed the damage, they were thinking that this tornado in June, it was near Enderlin. So it was about an hour and a half outside of Fargo. There's not a lot of major populous areas in North Dakota, right? I mean, Fargo would be one of them. So if there's any silver lining, it's the fact that Enderlin isn't a very large town, but they found winds that were estimated to be about 210 miles per hour with this tornado back in June. It was 12 miles long. The maximum width was over a mile at its height there. So usually when we're talking about tornado width, this way. So
wow.
Think of the scar on the ground. They think of it that's about a mile in width, which is crazy to think about. A mile
That is huge.
A very big tornado, and it was on the ground for 19 minutes. Now, unfortunately, it did claim the lives of 3 people back in June, but initially they were thinking this was that EF3, and then they found damage associated with winds of 210 miles per hour.
Wow.
Crazy.
That is a lot of destruction. And it's sad to think that we can't tell what the tornado is or how big or how destructive it's going to be until after the fact.
Yeah, it's that rating. And, if I go back, that Enderlin, North Dakota tornado initially rated EF3. And I think a lot of that was because in order to know the strength of a tornado, it unfortunately needs to cause damage, because most of the instruments we put out in front of tornadoes, they just eat them up. They eat them up, spit them out, damage them. And so it's hard to research tornadoes because they are so powerful, so strong. And with this tornado, what they actually did was there was a freight train on the tracks. The tornado had come through and thrown some of the train cars up to 500 feet away from the tracks.
Wow.
Some of them were empty, some of them were completely full. So experts, meteorologists, scientists, engineers are all a part of this group that analyzes tornado damage. They went back within the last month, looked at all the data, and did the calculations of how fast do those winds need to be to move a train car of this weight, of this size, 500 feet. And, it's interesting because with the classroom visits, and I've got some photos to show you later, I brought this up to some of the kids that I was talking with this week about the fact that meteorology is so much math. There's a lot of math that goes into the science behind weather. They use that math to figure out, okay, with this train car full of this load moving this many feet, those winds had to have been over 200 miles per hour. That's how they reclassified this tornado in North Dakota from an EF3 when they were initially looking at some roofs being ripped off and trees being snapped to that EF5. It's because of those train cars, the weight of the train cars, how far they flew, that they reclassified this as that EF5.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
What makes these tornadoes so hard to research or to classify in the moment?
In the moment, it's sort of instrument to put out in front of it. One, on the scale of weather phenomena in general, these are pretty micro scale, right? I mean, you're looking at trying to put an anemometer right in front of a tornado for it to go right over without hurting or destroying the anemometer, which is very tough when winds are 200 miles per hour, right? So just finding the instruments in the right place without them getting damaged, it is a big one. And you don't ever want to put yourself in, harm's way either. Something with hurricanes is hurricanes, we can use buoys.
Or planes.
Yeah. There's a StickNet program through Texas Tech University where they'll actually go put StickNet sensors, and the StickNets have anemometers on them to record the winds and the wind direction, not only speed but direction along the coastline. So you get that instant data. But tornadoes are just so notoriously difficult because they are so dangerous and so powerful that a lot of the equipment and the instruments that they use just aren't able to withstand some of these very strong winds that tornadoes can produce. The EF5 rating is astounding just to think like that is a very strong tornado. But what made the news was not only the fact that it was an EF5 tornado in North Dakota this past summer, but it's been 12 years since we've seen an EF5. And, in the meteorological world, we were calling it a drought. We've had a drought of EF5 tornadoes. We've had a few EF4s. We've had several EF3s, probably on the case of hundreds of EF1s, EF0s, and even EF2s. We're talking 12 years, right? And we average at least a couple hundred tornadoes in the United States every single year. So this was the first EF5 since 2013.
Wow. So they're pretty rare.
Very rare. Yeah. And looking at some of the numbers, since 1950, we've had 60 recorded EF5s. Now, I say recorded, and I stress that because, again, you need a tornado to create damage. You need a tornado to eat stuff up. You could have a very strong tornado with 200 mile per hour winds wrapped around it and inside of it. But if it doesn't hit anything, we have no way to know those winds, right? Yeah. So you need to put a barn or you need to put something in front of it so researchers can go out and analyze that damage to even be able to figure out that it's a large tornado. So that is one of the things that is difficult in the Central Plains and in the High Plains, right? The Northern Plains. There's not very big metro areas. And we're kind of grateful for that because we don't want these big old EF5s ripping through, big metros like the one in Moore, Oklahoma did. I mean, Moore, Oklahoma is just a suburb of Oklahoma City. And unfortunately, back in May of 2013, it killed 24 people, which is a lot of people when you think about how far the forecasting has come with tornadoes. But I think that's a very infamous day for those in Oklahoma. And it unfortunately claimed the lives of 3 tornado researchers who were very prominent in the storm chasing community. That was a very sad day, I think, for meteorologists across the nation, just to know that, one, it was a very powerful storm, and 2, that many people lost their life. But there is no way of looking at a tornado and knowing it's an EF1, an EF2, an EF4. We would never know. It has to create damage for researchers and scientists to then go in and say, okay, we know, and I believe I have got the scale here, we know with an EF1, we normally see more significant roof damage or broken windows. Sometimes the doors get blown off their hinges. They use simulations and even science experiments to figure out, okay, if we throw a 2x4 into a cement wall at this speed, that would pierce the cement wall, or sometimes it doesn't. And they use those kind of experiments and simulations to get these expected damage assigned to the wind speed. So EF0 would be the weakest tornado on the scale. That creates typically the minor damage where you see broken tree limbs, blown off shingles, maybe even some of the shallow rooted or new trees tipped over. And you see here, this is from the National Weather Service, some pictures next to it associated with what we would consider an EF0 tornado in the wind estimates. You go up to that EF1 that we were just talking about, more moderate damage, a little bit more roof damage, a few more overturned trees on the bigger side, the exterior doors on their hinges. The EF2s, now you're starting to talk about winds estimated to be between about 111 and 135 because they have found through simulations, experiments, and past data, considerable damage with winds of that would look like roofs completely turned off of,
Ripped off of
constructed
the
homes, large trees being uprooted, and then the scale goes up from there. The EF3s, 136 to 165, severe damage. I mean, you're talking about first floors gone from homes with weak foundations being completely blown away, trees losing their bark. I mean, you think about the wind that it would take to strip a tree of its bark is scary to think about. And then it just kind of goes
worse from there.
Yeah, the terror goes up from there, unfortunately, with the damage. When we see extreme damage, like well-constructed homes that are completely gone, or top-story exterior walls completely gone, then that's indicative of winds of 166 to 200, which would mean an EF4. And then the worst-case scenario, again, would be that EF5, which they found greater than 200-mile-per-hour winds. And that's almost catastrophic damage, if you will. I mean, you're talking about entire neighborhoods being reshaped and just gone. Some of the pictures, if those who've been around the Central and South Plains for a while, in Mora, Oklahoma, I mean, it just was concrete slabs in neighborhoods.
Completely
and it's scary.
Gone.
Yeah, scary to think about. Those once were homes. And the thing about tornadoes, I think that scares me the most is, like Category 5 Category 5 hurricanes. Hurricanes in general will have stronger winds. I mean, Category 1 hurricane starts at 75 miles per hour.
Wow.
So hurricanes, yes, tend to have stronger winds, but what's scary to me is how fast this happens. I mean, you think about that EF5 tornado in North Dakota was on the ground less than 20 minutes. Hurricanes,
19 minutes.
Hurricanes are hours, right? That it creates all that destruction and damage. I mean, tornadoes can clean swipe a neighborhood in minutes. And I think that's that I lay awake at night worrying about. It's thinking how fast and how big these can completely destroy anything that's in their path. But this is the Enhanced Fujita Scale by Dr. Theodore Fujita. He was the initial Fujita Scale when we just had the F1s or the F2s, and now we use the Enhanced Fujita Scale. But I think it's interesting the fact that, it's almost backwards, right? For a lot of people, we're looking at the damage to figure out how strong the tornado is, not looking at how strong the tornado is to forecast the damage. Yeah, there's no way to do that. There's no way to look at a thunderstorm and be like, okay, that's going to put down an EF2 tornado and we expect this damage. It's backwards. We go out and we say, wow, the roof of this home is completely ripped off. We know that through our simulations and experiments, for this kind of house, it takes at least 100 miles per hour to rip a roof off like that. So we know that this was probably an EF1 or an EF2. That's how that process happens. And I think that takes a lot of people by surprise, thinking, well, why don't you guys on TV when we were tracking the Round Rock tornado, how did you not know it was an EF2 tornado? Because it has to eat something up first. It's got to create damage.
It hadn't done that yet.
Hadn't done that in the moment, you're just trying to get people out of the way. Mm-hmm. When we're forecasting tornadoes, we forecast for the worst, right? We say you need to find your safe place in your home because the sky can be capable of any sort of tornado if the conditions are right. But we don't have any way of looking at a tornado and saying, okay, that's an EF5, right? You can kind of get gut feelings of, well, that certainly doesn't look like a skinny little EF0, right? You can get these scary thoughts sometimes in the very worst tornado situations, or even in a special situation where there's a lot to eat up, like what we had earlier this year in the spring in Hayes County.
Yeah.
There's a certain feature on our radar that allows us to see debris. And so what happens is we turn on this feature and radar is scanning the sky and it's looking for anything that's not shaped like a raindrop or a snowflake or a hailstone, basically looking for big pieces of something. And it returns those signals to us. Our radar sends out a radar beam. We get that return signal and it tells us, okay, something over here doesn't look like a raindrop or a snowflake or a hailstone. It looks like something different. It's called the correlation coefficient. We can use radar in that special setting to find debris balls or debris signature. And basically that tells us if there's a piece of tree that gets lofted up into the sky, several hundred feet, and the radar hits it and comes back and says, hey, there's something there that's not supposed to, we can say, okay, there's probably a tornado on the ground because we have a debris ball. We have a debris signature from that. Those are scary situations because, like in the middle of the night when that happened in Hays County, there's a tornado there and it's causing destruction, but you don't know what it looks like. You don't know what it's doing other than the fact
how big it is,
other than
where
the fact
it
that radar
yeah.
is creating this signature saying, hey, there's something over here that's lofting debris hundreds of feet into the air. And that obviously would be indicative of a tornado. There's nothing else that really does that. Hurricanes don't suck up things into the atmosphere, whereas a tornado would blow them around. And sometimes the winds get lofted and the debris gets lofted.
Yeah. And so if they're strong enough, it could be a house that's up there.
Exactly.
Or pieces of one.
Usually because the winds are so insane. Yeah. Like you said, it would be pieces of home. A lot of people think of the Twister scenario with the flying cows. I mean, that's certainly possible. You can lift up cars, you can lift up livestock, you can lift up anything with winds strong enough. I mean, clearly with the North Dakota train, it was strong enough to lift up these train cars and throw them 500 feet,
That
so
is wild.
It is crazy to think about how strong these tornadoes can be. But I thought that was interesting given the new research and the new analysis that came out this week of they went back and said, hey, we gotta do some more math on this. We think it's stronger. And it came back as an EF5 with those wind speeds. Just kind of looking at tornado warnings this year, because a logical question would be, well, can that happen here? Right? Can it happen? Yes. Has it happened in recent years? No. The last F5 we had was in Gerald, Texas. That was May of 1997. I say it in quotes F5 because that was before we used the Enhanced Fujita Scale. So we used the Fujita Scale. I forgot which year it was that we flipped over. There's a Fujita Scale that was a precursor to the Enhanced Fujita Scale. So the Gerald tornado was given the classification F5, the worst of the worst.
How far is that from our central Austin?
Oh, it's in our area. It's up in Williamson County.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, this was a devastating tornado for central Texas in 97. I believe I had it written here on the Gerald tornado. It unfortunately killed 27 people, but Gerald is just a little further up I-35 north of Georgetown. So between
Killeen and Georgetown.
Okay. Yep, right on our side of the county line. So south of the Williamson County line that borders Bell County. But it was a huge tornado that we have very, very great video of. It's sometimes if you hear of the dead man walking, there were actual multiple vortices within that one tornado of Gerald, and it almost looks, the vortices are spinning around each other. It almost looks like a man walking.
What is a vortice?
So it's like it's a little, almost like a smaller tornado within a bigger tornado, like a little vortex, if you will. If you ever took your hand in the water and like you swooshed it and you see the little spins on, it looks like several little spins
inside that one big tornado.
That big column. Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes they're on the outside. I would say most of the time they're kind of on the outside. These little spin up tornadoes around a larger vortex, a larger spinning column of air. And typically those multi-vortex tornadoes cause the most damage because you're just looking at extreme winds going in different directions. These multi-vortices that are coming outside the parent tornado. I mean, it's what nightmares are made of for sure.
Destruction, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and that's what the Gerald tornado was back in May 97. There were a lot of people here still who witnessed that tornado, who lived through that tornado. On the 25th anniversary, which was 2021. Actually, let me see.
It was 1997.
Yeah, 2022. We did a special on this, the 25th anniversary. The weather team at the time, but did include myself and Jim Spencer, and I believe Nick Bannon was here too. Anyways, it's online, KXAN.com. If you search the last F5, I talked to victims who are survivors of that tornado. You hear from former Chief Meteorologist Steve Yeomans and Jim Spencer talking about that day. We've got footage of Jim being on TV that day. It's haunting because you think how scary it is, especially 25 years ago when the technology is not what it is now.
Absolutely.
But to think it was so close to home, that I mean, it wiped complete neighborhoods off the map up there in Gerald, and unfortunately claimed the lives of 27 Central Texans. But anyways, if you're curious about that, we call it the last F5 because technically it was the last F5 in the United States before we moved on to the Enhanced Fujita Scale, the EF scale.
In the whole United States.
In the whole United States, because after that they moved on to the EF scale. But looking at just tornado warnings this year, you'll notice we've had tornado warnings would be either I've got eyeballs on a tornado, or my radar's picking up spinning clouds.
And they're not supposed to be there.
Spinning winds, more precisely. That could drop a tornado anytime, or the debris ball that we talked about. So radar indicated would be two reasons why we would see a tornado warning go up, or I've actually got eyeballs in it. We've had 5 of those tornado warnings in Burnett County this year. 3 out in Blanco County and Mason County, a couple there in Llano and Fredericksburg. Surprisingly, none here in Travis County. We know that.
Do we normally get tornado warnings here in Central Austin? Or like Central metro area?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and this is something too that I think surprises a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I love to ask this question when I go to schools. I do it every single time. I say, raise your hand if you think, I'm not worried about tornadoes. They don't happen here. And,
I'm sure that all of the kids are like...
Yeah, they raise their hands, and then I'll say, raise your hand if you think tornadoes do happen where you live and you want to know where to go if there ever is one outside. And there's always a couple. And I tell them 100% tornadoes happen where you live. No doubt about it. Do they happen a lot? No. We average at least a couple. I mean, especially since I've been here, we average at least a couple every year.
What's small ones or?
Usually on the smaller side. The most I've seen, I mean, the Round Rock tornado was an EF2. We had 6 tornadoes, 6 confirmed tornadoes that day. The Round Rock one being EF2.
6?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know. And that's also something I bring up with the kids is I tell them to watch KXAN. You know, if there's ever a tornado, we're going to be on TV and we're going to remind you where to go, where the tornado is. But I tell them, I say, not until you hear me or my teammates say, you can come out of your tornado shelter. Are you allowed to come out of your tornado shelter? Because oftentimes as the sky can produce one tornado, the sky can produce multiple tornadoes. Yeah. Just like that day when we had, now it wasn't 6 in one area, it was 6 spread across the 15 counties that we have here in Central Texas.
And what type of weather did we have that day to cause all of these tornadoes sprouting everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. What I remember is, and you know, we were forecasting severe weather. There was no doubt about it. We were in a moderate risk, a 4 out of 5 threat for severe weather. So it wasn't a surprise to anybody that weather was going to be dangerous that day. What was interesting is we were thinking more of a hail threat. I was thinking these storms could be capable of putting down baseballs, right? There was so much instability in our atmosphere and not a lot of wind shear. So you need the winds to be turning in different directions for tornadoes. But sure enough, March 22nd, 2022, that afternoon, I came back into work because I knew it would be bad, and it was myself. And at the time, former Chief Meteorologist David Yeomans, and who's now Chief Meteorologist Nick Bannon, the 3 of us were in the Weather Center for a few hours tracking those tornadic storms. And it was scary because we caught that Round Rock tornado on a weather camera.
That's my other question. A lot of meteorologists don't like to call out tornadoes when they see them because they're not sure if they're tornadoes or there's something else. What made you immediately say, that is a tornado, it's crossing I-35, be careful? I
saw the debris. I saw the debris on the camera. So if you go back, and I'm sure this is somewhere on YouTube. Right? Yeah. This was a big day in Central Texas weather. The situation was there was a tornado warning for Austin. There was another storm that was spinning, moving into Austin from the south. And so we were focused on that. And we have probably at the time about 12 different weather cameras all around Central Texas. And while David Yeomans was in front of the green screen, walking everyone through what to do in Austin for a tornado warning, and Nick was running his graphics, making sure that he was zoomed in on the right spots, I went over to the weather camera computer and I just started flipping through our cameras to try and figure out, do I have any sort of look in South Austin on this storm? I was trying to get a visual of this storm. we had a camera in Round Rock, and in my little flipping, I stopped on it because this big gray like splotch, and there was a whole bunch of stuff moving in it. And I was like, what is that? And we have the ability to move the cameras back and forth. And so I scooted over a little bit to the right, and sure enough, here's this cone tornado on camera. And there you saw the tornado moving, and you saw that big splotch of debris moving forward. And that's how we knew for sure, confirmed tornado, because we could see the debris flying around. More often than not with tornadoes, if you do have a visual, or if it's first starting to form, you can only see the funnel, because tornadoes start from the clouds, but it's not until you see the swirl of dust on the bottom
and touch the floor, right?
Can you confirm it a tornado? So if you hear me on that day, on that Round Rock tornado day, we see the tornado, I see the debris ball, and then they put up a little name tag at the bottom of the TV screen that says tornado warning in Austin. And my immediate concern is I can't see the ground. I can't see if this is 100% a tornado. So you hear me say on TV, take the banner down, because I'm trying to see if it's a confirmed tornado.
Oh, you couldn't see because the banner was in the
there
way.
was a little name tag that said tornado warning in Austin that the production staff behind the scenes had put up to tell everybody, and they were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to those intense moments of confirming a tornado or not, I have to see the ground. I have to see if there's dust or swirling debris at the bottom to confirm 100% that it's a tornado. And a lot of people give me hassle for that to this day, saying you were the one screaming about the banner. I'm like, I was, because I was trying to confirm if it was a tornado.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that tornado went right over the interstate. But that's what's tough, is we get a lot of funnels, a lot of, it starts in the clouds and it gets about halfway through, but not until it connects. You see the wind swirling on the bottom, and it meets there. Not until that connection happens can you call it a confirmed tornado.
Yeah, and then you can't decide what classification it was until after.
Exactly. You got it, girl. That's exactly right. And so, and obviously that would mean the threat needs to be gone. So you're not going to go out there. I wouldn't send my reporters out there right away either. I need to make sure there's not a second tornado coming, or lightning or hail or any of that, before they can actually go out and assess the damage. So it is very complex. By us, I'm talking about the Weather Service. The Weather Service is in charge of giving tornadoes ratings. That's not something the weather team does here at KXAN. The Weather Service, who are trained in looking for these little things on your screen, the ripped roofs, the foundations, the structure of the walls, they go through classes to be able to go out in the field after a tornado and say, okay, of this tree, very deep roots, big trunk, that's probably associated with winds of 130 miles per hour. So that would be an EF2. Not until they go out and say, okay, this is an EF2, and they send us the information. Do we put it on TV? Yeah.
So what are some of the common myths surrounding tornadoes that either kiddos tell you at schools or you hear from people?
Let's see. I would say, I think this is my tornado graphic. Yeah. The big one is, tornadoes don't happen in the mountains.
Texas.
Texas has flat blanket or the hill country, right? And what I tell them every time is tornadoes go where the thunderstorm goes. And do we see thunderstorms in the hill country? We sure do.
Sometimes they're worse than we see them here.
Do we see thunderstorms go over rivers? We sure do. Do we see thunderstorms over the ocean? We sure do. And the tornadoes come from thunderstorms, right? So we try and bust all those myths. We've had to report a tornado in every single state in the United States. Wow. Now, are they common in Pacific Northwest? No. Are they common up in the far Northeast? No. They want what I tell the kids, a little bit of warm air, a little bit of cool air, and they need a storm. They need lift. And so here in Texas, we're close to the warm air in the Gulf, and we can get some cold air coming down from fronts, moving through the plains. So we are in the sweet spot of seeing tornadoes. That's why it's called Tornado Alley, because we are in that spot where these storms have all the ingredients they need for those thunderstorms.
And is it true that they only happen around a certain time of year, or are they able to happen all year round?
Anytime, yeah, year round. I mean, my first year here, I was tracking a tornado on Easter.
Easter?
Yeah, springtime, which you expect. But, we've had the March tornadoes. We've had tornadoes come down with hurricanes before. I believe it was Hurricane Ian, a couple years ago in Florida, produced the most amount of
Yeah.
tornadoes we've ever seen with a hurricane. Usually those are on the weaker side with hurricanes, but it's just the friction of those hurricanes coming on shore and in the air interacting with the land that can put down little tornadoes. So yeah, those would be the big ones. Is knowing that tornadoes can go over mountains, they can go over water. They are not partial to overpasses or underpass. Do not get
They
yourself.
don't care
They
what
don't
is
care.
in the
Yeah.
way. They're going to rip it up.
That's another one that I get a lot is like, oh, if you're out on the road, can you stay safe underneath, like hiding underneath an overpass? I think that, again, came from Twister. No, you're not safe. You need to be in a four-walled, very sturdy building. Oftentimes, too, what they found is underneath an overpass, it almost creates like a wind funnel with some of the air because it's being squeezed underneath that overpass. So the winds are even stronger underneath an overpass. Another one was for a long time they said if you're ever in a car and you can't get to structure to lay down in a ditch. And
What?
Yeah, and I don't honestly know where that came from.
I feel like the tornado would immediately grab you and shoot you out.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the theory was, well, if you're in a car, air can go underneath the car and lift the car.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're lying flat on a ditch, there's no air underneath you to pull you up.
But you weigh so much less than a vehicle or a structure.
That in debris. It's the debris that hurts the most people. And I'm very adamant about that when I talk to kids at school. So I say, you are trying to make sure that you are in a place where there is so much around you where even if a tornado outside were to throw a tree against your house, there's so many
Something
walls
in the way. Yeah.
There's so many walls that tree would have to get through before it even reached you. And so we talk about that being downstairs as low to the ground as possible because typically as you go up in height, the house isn't as sturdy, right? You think about a skyscraper, you're going to be on the bottom if there's 200-mile-per-hour winds, right? Because the top is
Or in the basement.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Ideally in the basement, as low to the ground as possible with as many walls in between you and the outside. We advise helmets because of debris. We advise you to be in the most interior room because of debris. That tornado doesn't have to go right over the top of your home for you to be hurt, right? It's oftentimes the debris that gets flung through the window, or if the roof comes up, the debris that comes raining down on you. That's the biggest concern. And I think what people disregard most is, oh, if the tornado's not near me, I'm fine. No, it just has to get close to you to start throwing debris at you to hurt you. So that would be another misconception.
I always heard growing up and asking these questions to meteorologists that came to my school that you had to be in a tub and put a mattress over you.
If ideally, if the bathroom is your safe spot, you don't have a basement and you don't have a closet, because typically the closets don't have windows. Mm-hmm. The bathtub comes from the fact that in a bathtub, you're surrounded by hard walls, those ceramic, or very sturdy plastic on you. And then the mattress would be to protect you from debris. Wow. So that kind of plays into that. My biggest issue, or I guess my biggest hesitation, I should say, with the mattressing is it would take me a long time to move my mattress. It would take me a lot of effort and energy and time to get my mattress from my bedroom into my bathroom on top of me. And time is a luxury when you're talking about tornadoes, oftentimes. So I would rather you in a helmet with some sort of blankets or something on top of you.
Some pillows, I don't know.
Yes, exactly. Pillows on top of, and most specifically your head. That's what I'm most concerned about, head and neck. That I think would suffice, because I'd rather your body be in that safe place than you out in your bedroom trying to get that mattress on top of you.
And then the tornado come and pulls the mattress and you out of the way.
For sure. But I mean, going back to the F5 tornado we had in Gerald, one of the survivors who I talked to, it's an interview I'll remember until the day I die. She hid in her bathtub, and the tornado went right on top of her. And unfortunately, she was holding onto her dad's hand and she lost her dad. He was not in the bathtub with her. He was just trying to, I believe her mom was on top of her and her dad was next to her. But she got into the bathtub and I think it saved her life. She told me they found the bathtub so far away from her when they found her after the tornado had passed that it was almost hard to believe that she was in there to begin with. Wow. Because the tornado and her had completely, the
Separated.
and her head completely separated in that tornado. So, it's not a fail safe when it comes to being in the bathroom or being in the closet, because sometimes like this EF5 tornado, we talked about this on air the other day of, I could not imagine that sort of tornado hitting a major populated
City,
area.
especially here in the metro area.
Exactly. I mean, you think about
The
even
skyscrapers that we have.
Yeah, it would be so catastrophic. I again lay awake at night sometimes worrying about that kind of thing, because it's so scary to think about. Most of the time, I'll show you one more, this last graphic, most of the time we're kind of on this smaller end of the scale, outside of the fact that we did have that EF5, was that now 28 years ago? But we have certainly had our fair share of those EF2s and EF1s in recent, and EF0s too in recent years. And it can happen. It can certainly happen. At any point, springtime, we tend to get favorable setups for that. So it's just a matter of making that plan now. So, if you ever hear me or Chief Meteorologist Nick Bannon say, hey, there's a tornado warning for your area, you know exactly where to go. Everybody knows where to go, what to grab, and that sort of thing.
Wow. So we also did a stream earlier this year about tornadoes, where we kind of talked a little bit more on how to stay safe in a tornado.
Yep.
So if anyone wants to learn about that, you can always rewatch that video on our streaming app or even on our website. You have an article already published right now on our website about the stream that we did right now. And what is in here that we didn't get to kind of talk about?
So that's the official damage survey results that came out from the National Weather Service. So again, from that June 20th North Dakota tornado, they highlight the track, the width of it, how many people unfortunately we lost. And then I added a couple more of that graphic of what the surveyors look at when it comes to evaluating these tornadoes that we see. And that's nationwide. That does not vary based on geography or where those tornadoes happen. Those are universal across the United States. I did have, just speaking of, talking about tornado safety. This is a big one that I hammer home when I do school visits. So I just wanted to give a couple shout outs. Yesterday, I was at Howard Norman with Hutto ISD talking to their 5th grade. If you ever see me do the back of heads with the wiggly fingers, it's because some students don't have media clearance, and so this is my way of making sure that everybody gets to see themselves on TV and nobody gets left out. So we talked to Howard Norman. I had the opportunity to have some local Girl Scouts in studio with me. I was on air on Saturday morning filling in, and I had some Girl Scouts coming after work and do a little tour. We talked about weather safety as well, and I believe I have one more. Yep, Connection Christian Academy there in Buda had the opportunity to talk with their students, 1st through 8th grade, about weather safety as well. So every Tuesday and Thursday in the fall semester, out there talking to students across Central Texas. And, the goal is hopefully we plant the seed of what to do in a tornado, and then maybe one day, hopefully not one day anytime soon, but they remember, oh yeah, yes, that one lady told me to do this. That's
she told me to go in the bathtub.
Yeah, she told me to grab my helmet in a situation like this. And you never know. Hopefully, if you, for whatever, heaven forbid, find yourself in that situation, there's something that you learn here in KXAN that would save your life.
Yeah, or if your kiddo learned at school, then hopefully they relay the information to you and you are all prepared, right?
Yeah, I would love that. If you were to go home and tell Mom and Dad, this is what the weather lady said that we needed to do during a tornado, my purpose would be served that day.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kristen, for sharing all this information with us. It's always fun to talk about tornadoes, even though they're kind of scary.
Yeah, like I said, natural curiosity, right? The more you know, I think the more that you're going to be able to stay safe in a situation like that.
Exactly. Well, again, you can find Kristen's article on our website, KXAN.com, and rewatch this video or previous videos on our free streaming app, KXAN Plus. And Kristen, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.